Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the buzz that Boris Johnson's response to the Liaison Committee regarding his drunken escapades when surrounded by Russians with close links to the Kremlin at a time when Johnson was Foreign Secretary and Russia had just carried out a deadly attack on UK soil. Seems incredible that Johnson is only now facing serious questions about his role and judgment here, but now that he is, his responses, if anything, make him look more guilty. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So very quick summary, because I've talked about this before, recently even. As Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson ducked out of a top-level NATO meeting where discussions were taking place about the West's response to a state-sanctioned attempted murder, which did end up killing someone as well, on UK soil by the Kremlin. Johnson slipped his security detail and attended a party in Italy with the Lebedevs, according to reports that emerged a few years ago now. Evgeny Lebedev is a close friend of Johnson's and has close links with the Kremlin. His father was a KGB colonel who actively spied on the UK during the war. Now, there's a lot of talk on this story about him being an ex-KGB, but as Vladimir Putin himself said, there's no such thing as ex-KGB. There will have been others at the party as well who could have been considered to be Russian agents. I don't necessarily mean intelligence agents in the normal sense. You know, they could be. I just mean in terms of individuals who are part of Putin's network of interest. Boris Johnson is known for enjoying a drink and having very poor judgment. It has been reported that he was considered a bit of a security risk even as Foreign Secretary, and that oversight over MI6 was restricted for him. But I think a lot of that is rumour rather than definite. But we can only consider in horror what a drunk Johnson may have been asked at this party and what he may have said. Do bear in mind that this would be bad at any time. But it has to be seen in the context of this being at a time when Russia had ordered an attack on the UK. And this was the UK's Foreign Secretary, who would have been privy to a lot of high-level briefings by his own officials and drawing on intelligence from friendly foreign nations. The concept is horrific. But years later, Johnson was finally asked about this event in an official capacity by the Liaison Committee a few weeks ago. Now, this is a select committee of MPs whose role it is to scrutinise the work of the Prime Minister. Johnson had just provided written responses to a number of questions. Now, when you're talking about very serious potential misconduct on the part of anyone, much less the Prime Minister, it would be inconceivable that he's just written those responses on his own. No, he'll have had expert legal advice. Basically, the responses would have been lawyered, to coin a phrase. So what I needed to do was wait for actual lawyers to explain some of the issues here. Didn't take long for good old David Alan Green to consider it. For him, there are a couple of standout phrases that attract suspicions. Johnson was asked if he met with Alexander Lebedev, who's the KGB colonel, on April the 28th, 2018, without officials, and he was further asked whether officials were subsequently informed of the meeting. Now, at the time of the committee hearing, a couple of weeks ago, well, a few weeks ago now, I suppose, and as I spoke at the time, Johnson seemed evasive. He said that the officials probably were informed. Now, if I remember correctly, an MP tried to check this and posed a question in the House of Commons the following day, which seemed to indicate that he could find no record of this, of officials being told. So the Liaison Committee weren't happy with Johnson's oral answers, so they wrote to him with some of these questions again, demanding proper answers. Johnson responded, and we've just had his letter published. I'll post a link to David Alan Green's blog, which also has links to various authors. I'll put various links in the description below that may be of interest for wider reading, because I can't go through everything. But the main things he points out that are particularly interesting to me are the following. First, a great deal of Johnson's response has nothing to do with the questions being asked. Now, in many ways, this is politics. This is what you do. This is standard debating tactic, really. If you're on shaky ground, you move your position. Try and draw your opponent into a completely different argument, one where you feel stronger. So when you see someone who, in response to questions, waffles on at great length, it's probably because they're on shaky ground. And then you have to ask yourself, ooh, why are you on shaky ground with this specific thing? And of course, this isn't a debate. political or otherwise. It's a simple question for which there needs to be straight answers. So a load of waffle in a carefully considered written response to questions can only mean either he doesn't understand the question fully, you know, like a student writing a load of twaddle in an essay because they actually don't know what they're doing. Well, this is unlikely because Boris Johnson's been asked about the life of Boris Johnson. It's his specialist subject, you might say. And for anything he can't quite remember, he has full access to the official records from the time to jog his memory. He is Prime Minister. The second explanation is that he has something to hide. Another trick, if you do not wish people to pay close attention to something, then you need to distract them with a lot of chaff. The second curious thing is that although Boris Johnson is asked specifically about meeting Alexander Lebedev, because, you know, he's the Russian spy, Johnson does not refer to him in his response by name. He refers to him as Evgeny Lebedev's father. Now, that's curious. Now, I would take this to mean what he's trying to do here is shift attention to from the fact that he was meeting Alexander Lebedev, the spy, to he was meeting Evgeny Lebedev, the not spy, whose father happened to be there. It's like, well, if you go round to a mate's house, their father might be there. That's normal, isn't it? That's what he's doing. You know, he's trying to suggest that Alexander Lebedev should not be thought of as the KGB colonel who actively spied on Britain in the past, but the father of one of his chums. But Alexander was a spy, and he may very well have still been intelligence gathering at the time. It was certainly a very politically intense moment for Russia. Third thing to point out, and I've seen a few people marvel at this, was Boris Johnson saying, and I quote, "As far as I am aware, no government business was discussed." Now, someone who doesn't pay close attention to language might just read that as, well, I don't remember anything. No wonder he was a bit drunk, I suppose. But that's not what it says. And anyone with a critical eye for language, like, you know, let's say a lawyer, will be straight onto it. As far as I am aware is what you say when being asked about someone else's actions for which you might be responsible, but you can't know for sure. So a minister, for example, might be asked, purely hypothetical situation, have any of your officials showed concerns about this mad Rwanda policy, let's say? And the minister may say that as far as they were aware, no objections were raised by officials. So what they're saying is they don't know about any concerns, but they can't rule out that someone had concerns and they just weren't told about them. And that's all fine. What this phrase is absolutely not used for is your own actions. As far as I am aware. No, it's your own actions. You are completely aware. And this is incredibly serious for two reasons. First, if he's not able to give a categorical denial that government business was not discussed with foreign agents of a government who had just launched a deadly attack on the then Foreign Secretary's country, that's bad. You know, that he cannot give this categorical denial means he is leaving the door open to the possibility, nay probability, that government business was discussed. More than that, we know Johnson's a liar. We know that he has denied things in the past of which proof emerged later of his guilt. So in refusing to deny it, it means that he thinks there probably is proof out there. And just to throw something into the mix, Alexander Lebedev is known for having conversations recorded surreptitiously. I mean, he's a spy. You know, it's really chapter 1 of politics. If someone levels a damaging charge at you, and this charge is no less than treason here, in terms of the everyday use of the word, not necessarily the legal definition, I don't know. But if someone does that, you deny the wrongdoing. As a politician, you deny the wrongdoing. If a politician cannot categorically deny the wrongdoing, then it not only means that they are at least partially guilty, but also that they think evidence may well exist of their culpability and be leaked to the public. The second reason this is serious is because the language used invites further suspicion. I was not aware. You can't say that about your own actions. What does he mean by it? You can't just... And if you're sort of thinking, well, he just means he can't remember. Well, he just said that. And also, if he's saying he can't remember, that's still bad, because it means he might have discussed government business. But that's not what he said anyway. You know, and this wasn't an ill-considered verbal response. He wrote this letter. This wasn't his oral response. This was written. He had a lot of time to write this letter. It was dated July the 21st, which was a couple of weeks after the committee hearing. He had the time to consider every single word with, I'm quite sure, a lawyer or two. No, I'm not aware cannot mean I forgot. It might mean I was too drunk to know what I was doing, but that does not lessen his guilt. Finally, it seems that although there was no definite confirmation of this, Johnson did not inform his officials of the meeting. That meant that a drunk foreign secretary was talking to Russian agents, possibly about sensitive matters, at a time when NATO countries were discussing a potential response to a deadly attack by Russia on one of their members. This means that until the story was discovered by journalists, nobody in government need have known anything, because he hadn't told them. No one knew. There are other oddities in Johnson's response as well, but I'll let you read the blog, which, as I say, I've linked in the description below for that. I would recommend it, because there's a lot more to this as well. But I wanted to focus in on the fact that Johnson cannot deny discussing things with Russian agents that he should not have done, and that he kept the meeting from his officials. This is incredibly serious, and it should be massive news. Is it on the front page of the newspapers today? No, it is not. So it won't be massive news, will it? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.